Hello everyone, welcome to ScorchOurToys@AnyMoon.com's review of Bandai's DX VF-19Advance. This is a toy that was released in June 2015 for 2,300 yen. This toy comes with a lot of accessories. There's a display stand, I will show you more of that in just a moment. There are the full Advance packs, which are the same as the Macross Plus Fast packs, plus the wing boosters and some more shoulder pieces. I'll show you those a little bit more closely. There is a neck cover for Gwalk mode only. There is a pinpoint and barrier punch effect, which comes in 4 different parts, a gun, 3 fixed post hands, and a pilot. I believe only for packaging purposes, there is some assembly required for the display stand for fighter mode. You have these 2 little edge pieces that you need to peg in. So if you're intimidated by the number of parts that come with this toy, some of them are for the display stand, like all of those. You then can go ahead with the toy and the gun installed. You can just go ahead and there is a slot right here on the bottom of the fighter mode. There's a little peg right at the front of the display stand. You can go ahead and peg that in like so. Now you may have noticed that my Advance pack popped off. If this is happening very frequently for you, you might have it installed incorrectly, but even if it's installed correctly, it will pop off when you hit it. Now, one thing to check, turn your toy around. If the grooves for the wing are much wider apart on one side than the other, then that means one of your legs probably isn't properly positioned. If they look about the same to you, the teeth on the Advance packs don't necessarily grab as well as they should. So you're probably doing it right. It's probably just not latching on quite as tight as you would like it to. It should click into place like that one just did. And as long as I don't hit it too hard, it will stay on there pretty well. I will go over installing the Advance packs in my transformation guide, so look for that video separately. Overall, the Advance packs themselves do just fine. And if you were to say, alright, I don't really like those Advance packs, they're kind of garish looking, you could pop them off, and you could pop off the shoulder pieces, which are specific to the Advance, VF-19Advance, and you would have the fast packs from Macross Plus, more or less, maybe not the right markings on there. And now you might be thinking that this toy looks exactly like the YF-19 from Macross Plus, and it largely is very similar except for the obvious SMS markings and the canopy. This is just a single canopy. It doesn't split open like the Macross Plus YF-19 does. And there's no 2-seat gimmick in the cockpit like there would be for a YF-19. So VF-19 has a little bit more traditional front end to it than the VF-19. Now there was some issue with the packaging and the promo pictures versus what we ultimately ended up getting. As you can see in this picture, the upper parts of the wings appear to tab into the leg fast packs. But in reality, as you can see on the left, those tabs are just kind of sticking out there. So Bandai didn't do nearly as well a job in reality as they led us to believe. Now, obviously promo packages or promo photos differ from the reality oftentimes, but that photo is on the box, so not really cool of Bandai to do that. If you have any other Bandai DX Frontier toys, you'll already be familiar with this display stand. It's got the normal SMS base. There is no points of articulation here. All it really does for you is elevate your toy. It's got a little bit of a wobble to it, but it's otherwise fairly secure. The Advance packs are nice in that they have lots of articulation. There's ball joints for these boosters here, turning the toy to its side. These are also on ball joints here. These are fixed. But there's also a ball joint on this bottom booster as well. Like the YF-19, the VF-19Advance has a missile in the leg. unlike the YF-19 from Arcadia, you can actually access that missile when you have the super parts on. Now, in truth though, I'm going to go ahead and remove the advance pack here. That sounds great, but it doesn't really work out that way so much. You can unpeg the wing from the leg armor, and then you could theoretically rotate this armor out and down. Let's see if I could pull it off. Generally what's going to happen is that armor is going to pop off, thus revealing the door that has the missile in it, which is all very fancy. And then you would just put that armor back on. Now the big difference here is that the armor attaches to the trap door rather than to the surrounding area on the leg. So there it is, armor's on the trap door. Theoretically I can pivot that back in and not have to remove anything. So harder to get out, but you can see I could tuck it back in. Everything slots right back into place. So the VF-19Advance, a little better implementation of the missile in the leg.
With the advance packs off, fighter mode looks like this. It's actually pretty attractive, lots of paint. I'll compare it to the Arcadia in just a moment. Let's talk gimmicks. You can stow the gun in fighter mode. It's got a weird pivot in the middle of it that helps it stay flush against the body. There's still a little bit of an angle there, and that is a very odd way to solve that problem. Fortunately, it's underneath the toy, so it won't be bugging you too much. There are hard points on the wings, but no armaments provided, so that probably hints to what might come with a YF-19 at a later release. There are intake covers, which are removable, and they give you a little fingernail spot, which is very sweet of Bandai. There seems to be fewer and fewer fingernail slots on toys these days. So there you go, there is the turbine detail. I've already shown you the missile within the leg, so we'll flip the toy over now and talk about high-speed mode, which is implemented exactly the same way as Arcadia did it. You just bring the wings out. Oops, not that far. Although this does bring up a good point. There are little tabs that attach from the leg to the wing, or from the wing to the leg. Those tabs, especially on, I believe it's this side, incredibly difficult to remove the first time. So lots of patience required. In fact, when you get the toy, it'll probably look really sloppy. I know mine did. I've heard other people say it. You basically have to transform the toy and then transform it back into fighter mode because there will be lots of fat seams, pieces popping up that shouldn't be. Once you transform it, once battroid and back, it seems like everything starts getting into the right spot. So there you go. So obviously you've got the opening canopy as well that I've already shown you. That's the gimmicks. You also have some landing gear. The implementation of the front landing gear is pretty clever. What you have on previous toys is a straight landing gear here that creates a lot of dead space right in the neck of fighter mode, which makes it hard to get the right shape of the neck of fighter mode. Bandai overcame this by creating a collapsible front landing gear. So you get a little, you open up the doors and there's a little tow bar sticking out. You have to grab that with your fingernails and pull it forward, and you'll get to a point where you could then get your finger behind the wheels, and then you can just kind of lift up and forward, and it will lock into place on the bottom, but the front, the top part does not lock. There you get your articulated tow bar. Rear landing gears are very familiar to anyone who's had any other toy. Just gotta get your fingernail in and pop open the doors. Maybe a little easier said than done. There we go. And then you can just pull forward. They're not the sexiest looking landing gears. Nothing's painted. They do lock in the forward position. They do have rubber wheels, and they do spin. So when you're done, your toy will look like this. Now, little pet peeves. The canards, which I do like over the Arcadia ones, which are just pegs that pop out all the time. But they don't kind of click into their top position, so they're easily bumped during handling. Tail fins are even worse examples of that. They are... nothing tells you where you got them in the right spot, and nothing will hold them into the right spot as you handle the toy. Okay, now time for a quick Arcadia versus Bandai comparison here. Here are the pilot figures. The Bandai figure is on the right, the Arcadia figure on the left. The Arcadia figure actually has an articulated head, but otherwise they both look fine. There's nothing terribly special about either one. Your guns, the Arcadia gun is up above, the Bandai gun below. The Arcadia gun obviously looks much beefier. It also has a removable magazine and a gimmick for stowing in fighter mode where it won't slope down as much, and an ability to actually stow behind the shield in Gwalk and battroid modes. The Bandai gun just has that pivot down to work in fighter mode, so not nearly as much going on there, not as attractive, does not go behind the shield in Gwalk or battroid modes. The Arcadia toy has that split opening canopy that would be true of a YF-19. If Bandai does a YF-19, it'll be interesting to see if they do that, and it also has the 2-seat gimmick. The Arcadia toy has very sloppy wings, very poorly implemented high-speed mode. It has these very obvious wing roots. It has the very obvious pegs for the canards there, but it does do some things very nicely. Mainly for me, it's the angle inward around the nose here. That's a very nice slope to it. Also, looking at the back of the toy, how tight the legs are up against the shield. Those are your big pluses, as well as flipping the toy over. You have white painted landing gears. Very attractive layout. Another negative would be the big fat lip on the front of the intakes. So, though that's your Arcadia toy in a nutshell. Here's the Bandai toy. From the side, I'll show you in a moment, it really nails it. From the front, though, you do kind of maintain thickness throughout here. And what you'd like to see is for it to come in a little tighter in the middle. So not as good there. You can see not as tight to the legs in the back as well. The canards, though, much superior design there. Although they do lay a little flat for some people, I was perfectly happy with that. Less of a fat leading edge on the intakes as well. And the big highlight is no big gap that you have right here. This big black section in the middle of the leg. Not there on the Bandai toy. So Bandai, I would say arguably from the side, far superior. From above, the Arcadia is far superior. And color-wise, I feel like the Bandai has just the right color, where the Arcadia toy came in just a little bit pale. And then obviously paint-wise, the Bandai toy has all sorts of no step signs and just tons and tons of painted on detail, whereas the Arcadia toy has nothing, essentially. The Arcadia toy has a neck cover that is a separate piece. The Bandai neck cover is actually part of the shield in fighter mode, although it doesn't really work for Gwalk mode. That's why you have a separate neck cover for Gwalk mode. Let's take a look at a little line art comparison and then move on to Gwalk. I mentioned that from the side, Bandai really nailed it, and here is your proof. The Arcadia toy, by no means an ugly toy, definitely has some weaknesses that the Advance does not have. How low the nose comes down, the entire intake area, that gap at the knees, all weaknesses on the Arcadia from the side view. The Arcadia does, again, shine from above, where you would have no gaps around the shield, and also that how it tucks in nicely around the neck. Those are big pluses. Now, it's kind of hard to tell from me just holding the toys in front of you how big they are. So here is also a size comparison. You can see the Arcadia toy is a little bit larger in fighter mode, and all of these toys a little bit smaller than Yamato's YF-21. Gwalk mode is neat, locks together well, functions fine, has a little bit of a different design to the back, the legs here. There is a swivel behind the intakes. It's a very stiff swivel, but here you go. And that is how you get the aggressive A stance from the front, instead of a swivel at the knee that was employed by Arcadia and Yamato. So that is different. You then work with the ankles to get where you want the toy to be as far as how tall it's standing up, which is good because the ankles are stiff enough to actually do that. You also have the ability to pivot way far forward with the knees, but again, that would be only something you could really take advantage of if you're using that display stand, but it does come with a display stand, so that's positive also. So there it is. Works well. All the joints are tight. The wings are solid enough, but you are going to bump them out of place, so
That remains a complaint of mine on pretty much every YF-19 toy. Here is the Arcadia toy. It is going to have problems standing because their ankles are crap. But otherwise it looks alright. It looks pretty plain in comparison to the Bandai, but it's functioning the same way. It's locking in the torso. The joints aren't as tight, especially the ankles. But you do have the swivel at the knee, which is more traditional, and more people are used to it, so I think people are going to like it better. Otherwise, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. No crappy ankles over here, so I would go with the Bandai for Gwalk mode. I am not chronicling transformation in this video. I will have a separate video available on anymoon.com that will do just that, but I will show you some neat little tweaks of the transformation process, one of which is this shield, which has an integrated neck cover for fighter mode. When going to Gwalk mode, you just recess that neck cover and slide it into the shield. In doing this, you also plug the gap that was there for the head laser, so that's all very nice. Then you can go ahead and just use these pegs into this slot to get the shield attached to the arm. In Gwalk mode, the advanced parts are a complicated fit. You need to have your arms in the right spots. You need to be doing the right things with the shoulder parts. But it all can get on there. Looks a little bit busy. Display stand is serviceable. Again, it just elevates the toy. There will be a little bit of a wobble when you move it around, but you probably won't be moving it around too often. There's a little cradle that comes up in the back and keeps it nice and secure. So it works just fine. Again, a little bit busy with the advanced packs on in Gwalk mode, but it works, and here's the proof. Here is battroid mode, and I'm not covering transformation in this review, but I do advise you to check out my separate transformation guide. The toy with the advanced packs on looks like this. You'll notice that the wings are pretty much still in fighter mode configuration. That's the way it works. The boosters do add some heft, and so straight out of the box, the wings hold them up just fine. It starts getting a little bit loose over time, I'm sure, and that is why Bandai has given us these little stands in concert with their normal SMS stand. There is a battroid mode adapter. It looks like this. You're going to take your toy, which here's what it looks like all the way around with the advanced packs on, but you're going to take your toy and you're going to have this open end towards the back. You're going to fit the peg right up inside, and it's going to fit real snug and pop into place. So there you can see the adapter holding onto the toy just fine by itself, and it's going to go on to this Bandai display stand like so. So now I've got the toy on the display stand. You can see my wings have come down just from normal handling. Again, they're stiff enough where I could probably get them into a somewhat decent shape for posing, but I also have these little stands which I can use. Little arm, and they've got 3 little slots that you could use however you want. Spin this around however you want. It's just a separate piece on a peg, and then you can prop up your boosters like so. So I'm not going to bother doing it, but that's what all those parts are for. That's what they're trying to do for you. The stand itself, still no real options to it, just elevating your toy, but it is stiff enough in the joint region where you can pull off some pretty fun poses otherwise. There's the little twist. Okay, let's continue on. Let's look at the gimmicks. The toy does come with a pinpoint barrier punch effect that is in 4 different parts and needs assembly. Each part has a little slight bump on one side of it. You have to line it up with the appropriate slot, and when you do, it should just slide right in like so. On the back, you will see there is a peg for putting onto the fist. You simply remove the existing fist, and now you could, if you wanted to, install any of those fixed posed hands that come with the toy. They also have articulated wrists on them. Or you could go ahead and install your pinpoint barrier punch. Now it goes on just like any fist would. You're just going to line up that peg. Try to hold on the top of the arm so you don't pop open the arm and then have a moving target you're dealing with. It should just peg right in. Let's see if I could do it with the camera going in front of me here, but There it goes. Nice audible click, and now you have a pinpoint barrier punch. Now another thing to note while I got the toy like this, like you can really get a very wide A stance, which lets you have some fun with this pinpoint barrier punch effect. If the advance packs are a little too busy for you, you can of course strip them down a little bit and then show the fast pack configuration from Macross Plus. It's just a couple parts removed. Looks like this, and here are the Yamato Macross toys that you might already own and how this toy would scale with them. Moving on, there's a gimmick in the head. The top of the head removes. Just pull straight up. And then there is the visor on there. It's on there pretty tight. You want to pull forward with it. And when you're done, you will have something that looks like that. Which, let's see how close we can get to the camera with it. So here is the head with the visor removed. So I don't know if you will ever use that. I don't think I ever have outside of reviews. So it's a feature. It's there. Let's move on. Okay, let's go over articulation. I'll try to keep this fairly quick given how much articulation there actually is on this toy. We will start with the head, which can pivot forward and back on its neck. It is on a ball joint, so you can twist it to either side. Cock it, I should say, and then obviously it does twist as well. Head laser, yeah, we would expect that. Shoulder. Of course, you can spin around the shoulder. The armor on top of the shoulder is kind of cool in that it can separate away from the body a little bit and get up. So if you were trying to do something fairly dynamic, that is an option that is on the table. So you like that. There's this plate on the inside which can go up and down, which again can also accommodate some more severe arm action. There is obviously, so that means your bicep can pivot. There is the double jointed elbow. That's always wonderful to see. There is a twist point at the elbow and at the wrist. And then the hands open traditional, kind of you got your thumb, your trigger finger, and then the other three fingers all on one hinge. Going down, there is a waist, but it's very limited in its articulation. So cute to see, neat showing off, but I can't get too much of an angle out of it. Then you have your hip joints, obviously. Move that out of the way. So hip, back, forward. You can go pretty nuts with these hips. And since the canards tuck in so tightly, you don't have to worry about the hips running into anything or this kibble on the back of the hips running into anything. It's all very nicely done. There is a Gwalk joint obviously underneath that. The wings pivot, get out of the way, no problem, stay in their position. There's also a twist at that Gwalk joint, which is a little different than what we saw with Arcadia, where it twists at the knee. I will say, to Arcadia's credit, that the twist at the knee works out better for Gwalk mode, so I did like it there. You have your knee, which goes all the way to there and can come forward, and you can extend it to get a extreme Gwalk. Let's get this out of the way. So you can extend it and then go way far forward for Gwalk mode. So all that's good. Then you have your ankle, which I have in the down extended position, which is great for dynamic stuff. You can twist it, you can camber it, and it's just wonderful. So all good stuff throughout. You can find yourself having a ton of fun posing this toy, as I know I have. Okay, so we've made it to the end of the review, and you want to know which YF-19 or VF-19Advance toy to buy. We'll start with saying that clearly the tallest option, and probably the cheapest these days, or at least it should be, the Yamato 160, is terrible in comparison to the more modern toys. That's no knock on Yamato. Great for them for having gotten us here in the first place. They did a lot of work, a lot of engineering that was then built off by these toys. So thank you to them, but clearly outmoded at this point. So we have the Arcadia and the Bandai VF-19Advance. So I'm going to start with the positives on the Arcadia. I love the chunky battroid mode. I love how it looks pretty much in every mode. The sculpt around the nose. It does a lot of things right. It does do a lot of things wrong, and particularly the fit and finish territory. It's a very expensive toy, and it does very poorly for fit and finish. There are cavity fillers that go on the back of the toy. Here you can see them right there and there. They will pop out with very mild handling, so that drives me nuts. The super parts fit on, or fast packs I should say, fit on just fine. It holds the gun fine. The shield stays on almost as well as the Bandai VF-19Advance shield. Those are all fine. The intake covers pop off all the time. The head pops off all the time. The back of the gun pops off all the time. The wing armaments don't stay on as well as they should. A lot of problems that you feel like if they did a second run they could have fixed, but there's no knowing if that will ever happen. And the big flaw here is the ankles. They're just god-awful. So there's no way I can recommend to you a $300+ toy that has such a hard time standing that you're going to use the wings to stop it from falling all the way backwards. That's just unforgivable, and I know that there's a bunch of people who spent $400 on Arcadia toys right now that are giving me thumbs down, but there's no way I can tell you to buy an Arcadia YF-19, even though I think it's a very attractive toy. They just failed on the execution. So we are left with the Bandai VF-19Advance, which is a fantastic toy. Again, the Arcadia did a couple things a little bit better, whereas the Arcadia toy has some cavities on the calf, right there. Bandai figured out a nice little way, a cool little gimmick that I advise you to check out the transformation video, where they were able to come up with a way to have a flush calf there. Bandai, unlike Arcadia, just said, you know what, F it. We don't care about the cavities in the back of the leg, and personally I think that worked out fine. Detail on the overall toy, the painted on detail is fantastic. Sculpt, it's thinner, but it still looks athletic. And, you know, again, I like chunky toys, chunky battroid modes, but this looks fine by my eyes. So, overall, better handling toy by far. Definitely a steeper learning curve, but once you kind of get familiar with the toy, it's pretty intuitive, and you'll be very satisfied by the way everything comes together. So, I would recommend the Bandai VF-19Advance. Check out my full review on anymoon.com, and again, check out my transformation video to see all these gimmicks in action. And as always, thanks for watching.